So the question, why isn't Batson working? A kind of a short answer. The criminal legal system was built on white supremacy and systemic racism. That's it. That is foundation. That's what it is at its core. And I think it's going to take a lot more than this one well-intended Supreme Court case to undo that, especially when we consider, as what's been discussed earlier, the long history of racism and intentional and deliberate exclusion of Black people and people of color from juries that was allowed in this country, encouraged and supported. That's kind of what we're thinking about and working with here. Just think about 150 years ago, the idea of having a Black person on a jury was ludicrous, right? It wasn't a thing. So what we are trying to do is really destroy the foundations of a system. We're trying to insert fairness into a system that is designed to be unfair. So it's a very, very radical proposition we're doing here, and it's pretty scary. So, as you've heard, Batson, albeit a good case, it did not go far enough. And as Steve said, one of the biggest problems is the first step. You know, the very first step, that's what it's flawed at, as the first step. The person challenging the use of the peremptory must establish a prima facie case of purposeful discrimination in the exercise of the strike. And that is just that very first step is so hard to overcome in and of itself. And then the person who uses the peremptory can give any sort of facially neutral reason for exercising that challenge. And as you've heard, any reason will suffice, almost any reason. And the judge who's going to be making that decision is likely a former prosecutor, likely white, likely shared off to that same DA about a year ago, and likely made those same arguments to keep Black people from serving as juries. And then they're going to decide the credibility of that challenge. It just doesn't work. You know, when I was practicing, I still practice, but when I actually tried cases, I was trying a case where the DA excluded or challenged like my second Black juror who made it into the box. And I made my Batson, made my objection, talked about how he's now excluded 50% of Black people who could serve as jurors in this case. And the reason he gave for excluding that juror was because she was wearing a puffy coat, a puffy coat. And if that would have been a scene from a movie or in a sitcom, everyone would be like, no, he didn't. No, yes, he did. That was his reason. And what's even crazier about it is the judge accepted that reason. The judge accepted that reason. And so we talk about Batson. Yes, it is a tool, but it is also a tool that is inherently flawed.